Okay, you will now need the piece that you just sewed and your piece C flap lining, which should be interfaced with Decovil or Peltex. And you will also be needing your 2 piece D lining slip pocket pieces. So there's 2 of those. And your binding that goes across the top, which is piece H. But I am setting those off to the side for a moment because first we need to work with these 2 pieces alone. These should be the same size, and we are going to match them wrong sides together. And if your zipper pocket piece is wrinkled or anything, just flatten that out. All of these should have the centers marked on them. It looks like I forgot to do that other than on this piece, but I didn't mark it on here. So I'm going to make sure to mark my centers of my different pieces because that'll make it easier for me to match these up. Okay, I've now made sure that I have the center marked on the bottom and the top of both of these, and that helps me match them together. And then I'm going to put sewing clips or pins around the entire outside. First I match the centers, then I will move out from there. And this would be a little bit easier on a flat surface, but I'm doing it right here on camera. Now you might think that you're going to be basting right away, but you are not. We got to do another step first. So after I have this all clipped, I'm actually going to set it aside. But I'm actually a little premature too. Before you set it aside, one final thing to do. In order to help secure this, these D-rings, I like to attach them to this interfacing and to the lining. And one way you can do that is through either a rivet, or I just like to do another line of stitching just on top of it right here. Now you can stitch right over where you already stitched in the top stitching, or you can stitch down about 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to go right on top of my previous top stitch. And this will just help keep all these layers in place. Oh, you know what? I did the wrong color of thread on the bottom, but I'm actually going to leave that because it's easier for you to see what it looks like on the back. Okay, now I'm going to set this aside for a moment. And I need my 2 piece D lining slip pocket pieces and my piece H binding piece. Now these I'm going to place wrong sides together. And my binding, which is a little longer than the top of the piece, and that's fine. Now it does not matter, since these are the same, which way is the front or the back. If you have a specific fabric. If you use 2 different fabrics for this for some reason, and you want one to be on the front or the back, then this one that's face up will be the front. And I am going to fix my thread now. Okay, now that I have that all threaded correctly, I'm going to sew this. Oops, let me fix my stitch length. And I sew this with a 3/8" or 1 centimeter seam allowance. All right. Now, for this next step, it all depends on how thick this is, and if you have a fabric that frays or not. But I'm going to turn this to the back. Of course, you can't tell that it's the back because it's the same fabric, but this is the back. If your fabric frays, then you're going to want to fold this to meet the raw edge and then fold over like that, just like a standard binding. And then we're going to sew from the front. But my fabric does not fray, and so I'm just going to fold over and then down. And I'm going to stitch from the front. And yes, there will be extra fabric here, but I'm going to trim that off. And this is similar to how we will do the binding around the edge, but not exactly the same. I'm going to switch to my Teflon foot, which for some reason is falling off every time that I finish a row of stitching. It's kind of odd. So hopefully this stitches without sticking too bad. I really love this vinyl, but it is a pain to stitch on. So I'm going to edge stitch this binding. Let me zoom in a little for you. Okay, this is where you need a good set of sharp shears. First, I'm going to cut off this extra. And now I'm going to stitch or trim the back. And what I typically do is put it, I could stitch or cut it this way, but I find that I just prefer having, I'm right-handed, and so I like having the right side of the scissors right here, and I can push it up against the seam, and then I just end up cutting a consistent amount off because I'm cutting basically the width of this blade away from the edge, which is about exactly what I want it to be. Got to come up with a better place to put those scissors. I can't quite reach them when I'm recording. Okay, so my binding is all finished, and I marked the bottom, the center bottom of these earlier, and now I am going to match that up with the center bottom of the main back flap pieces, and I might have to search around for where I marked the centers because they're marked on the inside. Oops, where's that? Here it is. So I'm going to just add this fabric here to these. And one thing I did try to be very careful of is that all these thick areas, none of them should overlap each other. So if you find yourself, if your binding is up next to your seam of the back, it's in the wrong spot. It should hit right below it. I don't know if you can hear my dog in the background, but apparently the mailman just dropped by and he's feeling growly today. Okay. Okay, so now you'll see that this back seam, the seam from the back does show. So ideally I would have used a stitch color that coordinated with this back, but for the video it does help to see exactly where it's going to be. And now I am going to baste all the way around the outside of this. But I don't need my Teflon foot for this. As you can see, our layers are adding up. And we haven't even added the gusset to this yet. So this can get pretty thick. So our back is all ready to go. But now it is time to set this aside and work on the gusset.